Hello lovely people, and welcome to this week's coverlet of comfort. Before I get into the stitching that I'm going to do this week, I just wanted to read you this beautiful poem which was left for me in the comments under last week's video. I've pinned it as a comment there, so if you want to go back and look at the comments under last week's Wednesday video, look at the pinned comment, you'll see it there, but I'll read it to you now. Upon thy lips the title wanders wrong, for comfort of the coverlet thou sayest. Yet name reversed doth not betray the song of gentle ease wherein our limbs are placed. The work, ordained coverlet of comfort, still unfolds its warmth the same in either guise. Whether the phrasing dance at whim or will, its quilt soft hush remains the constant prize. For words may flip like leaves before the breeze, yet stitches hold, soft cotton, quiet weight. In dusk's dim hours it answers shivering pleas, and tucks the moonlight close against the gate. So call it how thou wilt, but mark this art, comfort's true coverlet enfolds the heart. And I just thought that was absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much for writing that. I'm so glad that I got the words the wrong way around and inspired that beautiful piece of writing. Okay, so we've got 2 more weeks of stitching because April has 5 Wednesdays in it. I did that deliberately because the piecing of the stars, you know, a bit time consuming and so on. So my stitching this week, I want to stitch, because we're among the stars, some constellations. That was my idea. So I've picked a few. You may, if you want to do this, pick your own, of course, you know, whatever speaks to you. And I'm going to, they're not going to be, you know, if there are any astrophysicists watching, don't judge me, they're going to be artistic interpretations. So I've chosen Cygnus on this scrap of paper, and I've written here he was the friend of Phaeton, and Phaeton rode his father's chariot too close to the sun and was killed by a thunderbolt to stop him doing damage, and Cygnus grieved for him and dived into the river to try and retrieve his bones, and that's why he has the name of a swan. And the constellation, I've not drawn it very well here, but anyway, so that this constellation now is taken to symbolise friendship and loyalty, so that seemed appropriate to me. I've also chosen Columba, the dove, for peace, which is important in our community here, I know, and to all of us, and the peace we find in stitching and the peace we find, you know, with each other. And then the third one is a very personal one to me. If you've been here a while you may know why, and I've chosen Canis major, and this is also because it's obviously Canis is dog. Dogs are loyal friends. Just a little heads up, there will be a future month where animals or furry friends or so on may be a theme. So, you know, I'm just putting that out there. But Canis Major, the main star in Canis Major is Sirius, the dog star. And you'll know that if you've been here a while that I lost my beautiful boy Sirius last year, around this time actually. And he was, of course, a loyal friend, so I wanted to put his constellation in my friendship section. So how am I going to stitch those, here you ask? I'm going to start with the simplest one, which I guess is Columba. You can find these online if you Google constellation diagrams or star charts or something like that. There's millions of them if you don't know them, and you know, you can pick the ones that speak to you the most. So I'm going to pick an area just where there is no star. I can obviously change the size if I want. You could, I guess, draw it on your cloth. I don't think I'm going to. I'm going to just freehand it because it's purely representational. So I might put Columba in here, I think. Somewhere like that. So I'm just looking that it will kind of fit in that space. I'm going to start with the centre star. I'll just put a little pin. I guess what you could do, if you wanted to, is put pins. That's a too big pin. Just occurred to me in the moment, if you've got these little applique pins especially, the little heads of the pins could mark the points of the star, if you didn't want to draw on your cloth like me. So that pin is kind of going in this line, so then there'd be another pin here, and that would go this way. This may or may not work, but we can always change it. Don't see why it won't. And then if we have And if we do this pin for here, I'm going to have to move it down a bit because it's going to end up in there. Right, with pins we can do that. So I'm just sort of following my diagram, roughly angling the pins where I want them, and I'm working on this one, so I want that line slightly longer, so I'll just come back the other way with it. And then this final one up here goes under that kind of angle. Drawing with pins basically, being careful not to pin myself. And then this, so going back to my starting point here, I want this one up here somewhere, like that, and then this one coming like that, and then I've got this great big long line coming down, so I don't need to pin the whole line, I'll just pin the star itself at the end of it, maybe somewhere here. As I'm looking, I'm seeing it's, you know, I'm being finicky now. So these two stars are represented here and here, and then if I draw a vertical line down, this star sits to the left of that one. So I'm going to put it over there somewhere, I think, like that. I'll keep that there for reference. I'm going to use this silk thread. It's a little bit thicker and it's a bit shiny, and it's very naughty of me because it's the thread I'm using for the piece I shared with you on Friday with the big dark circle in the centre. It's for my background stitching, so I'm hoping by using a little bit here it doesn't mean I run out on the other. I've got a huge lazy girl thread, but never mind. So I'm basically going to do a French knot for the star and running stitch for the lines in between, and obviously constellations in the sky, the lines aren't there, the lines have been drawn by people in the past who've seen these shapes, so you know, but you know. So I think I'll start right down here with this one. I'm going to come up here on the head of this pin. Oops, sorry for my rings on the desk. Rings on her desk and bells on her toes. And now get the pin away. If you don't want to do French knots, you could just do, you know, just a few running stitches on the spot, or the granitos stitch if you know how to do that, which is basically 3 stitches, one on top of the other. I did loads of French knots last month, but I'm only going to do a few here. So I've come up there where I want. I think I'll do 2 wraps for these and then 3 for Cirrus. So twice around the needle and back in. And I can come up again in the direction that I want to stitch in, like that. So I'm just eyeballing my line to that next star there, and with the needle still in the cloth I'm going to pull that up a little bit, hold that with my thumb and pull through. And there's my first little tiny star. So now I'm going to turn it in the direction I want to stitch in. And I'm just going to, by eye, go there. Of course, if you're happier drawing a line, you can. The other thing I do sometimes is just lay my thread on where I want to go, and then when you take it away, actually, how about, let's try this. I'm trying all kinds of new things today. So if I hold my thread in place and take my first stitch, obviously I'm going to have to pull the thread through. Getting caught around the pins. That's not helpful. That's it. Hold my thread in place again. Oh, have I just invented something? I'm sure someone else has thought of it. So basically I'm using my thread as the line that I want to follow. Pull it through. Get caught around the pin. It's, you know, it's the first ever time in my life I've done this. Hold it where I want it to go. You could, of course, cantha style, when you watch people doing proper cantha quilting, take a few stitches at once and pull through, and not pull all the way through. So you can leave your thread there, follow your line, and pull through, but not all the way through, making sure you don't stitch through your thread obviously, or you won't be able to pull it through. And then maybe 2 more stitches brings me to where I want my main star, and now I can pull through. I hope I haven't trapped my thread anywhere. There we go. And then pull it back into, and some of my stitches are different lengths, but I don't really mind. That's because I got smaller as I went nearer to the centre. So that's my first, oh, it's not serious, is it? I'm doing Columba. And I think all the stars are pretty much the same. Anyway, artistic license, I'm going to do a bigger French knot there because I feel like it, so I'm going to do 3 wraps. And in, back in nearly where I came out, and then I'm going to go this way, up towards the next one, put the needle in, pull it up, and pull it through. And this is just a short length, so I don't think I really need to do the trick of laying the thread on. I can just go straight there. Take that out. Put my next knot, 2 wraps again, in and leave the needle in, pull the thread up around the needle and pull through. This is a handier way of doing French knots. I sort of came to it when I was doing all the French knots on my last piece. No, I nearly did another French knot, running stitch, Catherine. Because you don't have to, when you're working on a larger piece, keep pulling through to the back. You can just straight away move your needle forward. So I need my next knot on the point of that pin. So I'm going to turn it in the direction that I'm going. I'm just going to, I'm just going to remember where that needs to be. It's just on the seam line there, or thereabouts. There, maybe I'll just put the pin back. Do my knot, 1, 2 wraps. Be careful not to stab myself. So go in and come out, put that round the needle, pull through. And then do my straight stitches until I get to where I need to be. Pull through. And now I'm going to have to finish off and go back because I don't want to jump all that way, especially since, like I said, I need this thread for my other project. So this time I'm going to put my needle through and tighten up and then pull through to the back. And you could, if you enjoyed doing this and it spoke to you, do, you know, loads of constellations all over and stars in between and make your entire background a night sky. I'm just going to do the 3. So now I'm going to come back to the centre star and come through from the back. Just a little space away from it. And now I need to, I think I'll turn that pin around. So I just need to aim for it when I get to the pin, that's where I do my French knot. If, you know, this is me avoiding drawing on my cloth. If you want to draw on your cloth and you think all this fiddling about is ridiculous, you go for it. I'm just trying it. Maybe I want 1 more stitch. Two wraps, go in, bring my needle out where I'm going to do my running stitch, pull up, thumb on it, pull through. There we go. I'm just going back to check my diagram because I had it the same way up. Yeah, that's about the same length as that, so that's fine. So I'm going to turn my pin again, just put it through like that. and that's where my star is, being careful not to stab myself on the back, you know, with my hand behind. You could also, if you didn't want to do French knots, just occurred to me, put little beads, little white beads, or, you know, silver beads or whatever. Get that last pin out and do the last knot, and that is Columba. Now I'm going to go and do exactly the same process with the other two. Did I just come through to the front? No, I didn't. So I don't think I need to talk you through that anymore. I can now just witter. I just might decide where to put them. I'm actually filming this on Easter Sunday, so happy Easter if you celebrate Easter in any of its forms. Easter or Ostera, or, you know, any of those. What was I saying? Sorry. Yes, I'm filming on Sunday because my daughter's coming on Tuesday, as many of you know. So I've turned that upside down, haven't I? I don't suppose it matters, you know, it's just a matter of perspective, really. And I'm pretty sure as well that constellations are different in the different hemispheres. So you might have some different ideas, because I don't think you have what we in the UK call the plough, and I think in the States they call it the Big Dipper, which is Ursa Major, the Great Bear. I don't think you can see that in the southern hemisphere, can you? You'll have to correct me if I'm wrong. Right, where shall I put Cygnus? I might put Cygnus down here somewhere. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that I'm not wrong with that you have different constellations. I'm just laying the paper on and just peeping underneath to make sure I can roughly get it in the right place without going on to my other stars. But like I said, you can... So if I put the centre one there, if I get the centre one in the right place, I think the rest I can just kind of work by eye. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's right. You'll soon tell me if I'm wrong, I'm sure, because I know I have many of you watching in Australia and New Zealand in the Southern Hemisphere. I'm going to carry on with my pin trick. I'm going to give it a chance. I wasn't entirely convinced that it was handy, but you know, you have to give these things a chance, don't you? So yeah, so Lily's coming on Tuesday. She'll be here for a week, so I'm very much hoping that she will help me with Friday's, or be included in Friday's Park Home Life. I maybe shouldn't have said it publicly when I haven't asked her yet, but I'm pretty sure she will. Certainly she'll help me with the filming, even if she doesn't want to be in front of camera. So what I'm hoping is, weather permitting, and it's lovely weather here at the moment, so I'm hoping that carries on a bit, is to go with her for a walk in the woods where I took you some time ago, Duncliffe Woods. And I think I mentioned at the time that there were signs up saying about areas where there's lots of bluebells, because there's a lot of beech trees there, and bluebells and beech trees like to grow together. So I'm hoping to go and see the bluebells with Lily and take you with us. That's my plan. There's another little star really close to that first one there. Yeah, sorry, I feel like I need to concentrate, which means I don't talk. Let's get this last pin in. This one comes quite low down and under a slight angle. I don't want to go too close to the edge either, same as before, because of needing to join. So I think I'll call that good enough. Yeah, oh, before I forget, I've just read this. I talked about it a few weeks ago in my Monday video. I'm showing you something if you can look up. This is the Diary of Opal Whiteley, who wrote, and she wrote it when she was about 6. And there was a quote from it in The Women Who Run with the Wolves by Clarissa Pinkola Estes, which I reread recently, and I took some words from it as inspiration in my Monday journal. But she quoted from this book, and so it made me go and look it up. and some of you knew it and some of you had read it, and I managed to pick up a second-hand copy, and I just finished it actually in the early hours of this morning because I woke up stupid o'clock, and it's absolutely wonderful. Well, I found it absolutely wonderful. I think it's one of the most unusual books I've ever read, and I've read a few. So if you can find it anywhere second-hand or in your local library, I highly recommend it. It's written or it's arranged in the form of poetry, really, and it's the story of this little girl and her life. And why I'm telling you here is, one, because I thought you'd like to know, but also because, oh, and this was in it. This is not my dried leaf. I got this second-hand from a second-hand online bookshop, and there was this leaf in it, and I'm not entirely sure of the species. It smells kind of eucalyptusy, but it's not a eucalyptus. It might be a, I don't know. It's not ash. The leaves are serrated around the edges. But anyway, it was in the book. I was reading it in bed and I opened the page and that fell out. I thought, wow. Yeah, what was I saying? She's got lots of animal friends. Her dog, Brave Horatius, and then, you know, the wild wood rat and a little crow, and as well as the domestic animals. But also she talks to trees and rocks and lichen, and, you know, so I just, as if they were friends, and she hears them speak to her. It's just wonderful. I want to read it again straight away. It's one of those books when I finished I wanted to turn back to the beginning and start again. So I really recommend that. There was a couple of places where I sobbed like a baby. I will warn you if you're of a sensitive nature. But it's absolutely beautiful. So yeah, so that's Opal. And this is adapted by Jane Bolton. And it's called The Journal of an Understanding Heart. So yeah, that's my book recommendation for this month. Let's go back to my constellations. I think at this time I'm going to start down here, because I can do this line and then this line. If I start in the centre, I'm going to have to do 4, you know, I'm going to have to stop and start 4 times. I'm going to start down here. And again, I think I'm going to do the centre star bigger. I've been naughty and moved it again. So I'm going to do 2 wraps everywhere except the middle one, where I'm going to do 3 wraps. Yeah, because I was, I don't know what's the right word to use, sorry, sad, a little bit upset with myself that I just glibly started talking about all my friends and didn't think of people that are not blessed to have so many friends, or people who choose not to have lots of friends. You know, we're not all the same, are we? Some of us like our own company, don't feel the need to have lots of real life friends. Others aren't comfortable socially, so you know, we find hopefully companionship and friendship and understanding in online communities. And I didn't really give that any consideration at the beginning of the month, for which I am, yeah, I regretted that, let me put it like that. So, yeah, to read about Opal and all her ideas of friendship that transcended just being friends with a person. Because I think, you know, a good book can be like a friend, a familiar book, a film, that maybe a favourite film that you've watched a few times. We say, don't we, it's like an old friend. So I think the concept of friendship goes much further than just an actual other human being that you're friends with. And I wished that I had thought of that at the beginning. But I'm thinking of it now, so better late than never, they say, don't they? Just going to move that pin slightly while I get my French knot in there. So this is my centre one, which is going to be 3 wraps. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to go straight through to that other one up there. And I don't know if an astrophysicist would recognise these constellations, but I know what they are. Well, they certainly look like constellations to me. Put that pin back where it belongs. So I'm happy enough. Let's turn that pin again. So now I can just aim for that pin. Yeah, so it's a lovely sunny day today. Sunday, like it's Easter Sunday, like I said. So I'm doing this video, obviously, and get it all edited and uploaded and scheduled for you on Wednesday. And I was going to go and do some food shopping, but of course it's Easter Sunday, so they're shut. So I'm not doing that. Because tomorrow I'm going to Martha, as I've mentioned before, to have the rest of my dreadlocks put in and sorted out. And then Tuesday afternoon Lily's coming, so, well, I've still got Tuesday morning, but I was going to do some housework, don't all faint, just to make it reasonably nice for her, and, you know, sort out her bedding and everything. But because it's such a lovely day, I really want to go and do some more gardening, and there's not a lot I can do at the moment other than go and get more plants, but I don't really want to go to the garden centre on Easter Sunday because the world and his wife will be there, as they say. So I might, I'll see how I feel, start digging a little border just outside my fence here. I want to just make a little border along the fence with my neighbour, because in the grass in front are lots of primroses and they're just beginning to go over, and when they go over completely I want to lift them and put them all, you know, in a little border at the side there, because then I can cut the grass on that bank and you know, not hurt the primroses, and then as time goes on, no, running stitch. As time goes on, I'll gradually, as I get shrubs, can put them in there and get rid of that grass that's difficult to mow there. Another knot there. I took my pin out there, but I could just see the hole in the cloth where it had been. Yeah, and this silk's got a lovely little shine. No, running stitch. I keep wanting to carry on doing French knots. Probably because I'm not properly concentrating. Yeah, I'm glad I went with the silk thread. I don't think I'm going to use very much. Although I might use a little bit more of it around the stars as well. A friend gave it to me. It's my friend I've talked about before, who had a fabric shop where I used to teach, and she gave me a great big spool of it a few years ago, and this is all I've got left, and so I wouldn't know where to get any more. I could ask her, I suppose. If I run out I can always ask her. So now I need to go there, so I'm just going to turn the pin. When it's a little short length, I find it fine to just aim for it, because your needle's straight, so, well, unless you've got a bent one, but this needle's straight, so it's not that tricky to keep yourself on a straightish line. It was just that long length when I did that laying on of the thread, so that would just depend what constellations you choose. I could, of course, I guess, just sit in the garden, couldn't I, and do some more stitching. Maybe that is what I should do. I have to kind of tell myself to do things like that. I just feel like I should be doing something. unless it's the evening. The evening it seems fine, it feels fine to be sitting and stitching and watching TV, or watching, you know, someone on YouTube, or listening to music or whatever. It's that old laying guilt trips on yourself thing. And on a rainy day I don't feel bad sitting and stitching in the daytime, but yeah, I need to give myself permission to sit and stitch if I want to. As long as I've done all the things I have to do, why shouldn't I? I don't know. You'll have to tell me how you are about things like that, and if you've changed. I think it comes from my upbringing where I was not encouraged to sit and do nothing, in inverted commas, nothing productive. Right, so that is Cygnus. Now I've got Sirius, the dog star, and his constellation of Canis Major. And that's a bit more complex. It's got a few more stars in it. He was that way up where I got him from, but I'm going to put him that way up because, you know, that's how he fits. And the cloth, you know, doesn't matter, does it? Don't know why I'm justifying myself to you. I'm sure you're all saying, why put him whatever way up you want, Catherine? Nobody minds. So now there's quite a long, he's got a long back from here, but then there's a star sort of there. I might make that slightly shorter. Just for space restrictions. And then his tail goes up like that. Sorry, this is probably not very interesting hearing me say all this. And again. But yeah, I miss that boy every day. So there's 1, 2, and there's another star at the end. He was such a lovely dog. My ex wanted a dog to take shooting, and at that time we had little Dougal dog, so I just have to count. There's my little terrier that I got from Ireland. He was going to be put to sleep by the people that he lived with. I've told this story before, I think. He lived at a riding stables, and they claim that he was killing neighbouring chickens, which I don't think was true, because his whole life, he lived to be 17. He was about 1 when I got him. His whole life we had chickens and he never bothered them. So I think that was a tale. But anyway, I was more than happy to have him, so I'm not complaining about that. So I'll put that one sort of down there, I think. Maybe further, a bit further. I think that'll do, pig. And I'll keep that handy because I've got places where there's no pin, so I'll need to know which way to go. Right, I'll start down here, I think. Yeah, so we had him, we had little Dougal dog, and then he wanted a dog for shooting. But none of the common breeds that are used around here was what he wanted, which are Springer Spaniels largely. That's what mostly they use. And I just wanted a pet, of course, because Dougal was getting on in years, and you know, sometimes if you've got a dog who's getting on in years, if you then get a puppy, it kind of gives the new dog a new lease of life. It depends on the dog, of course. Some dogs don't want the torment, do they? But others seem to sort of perk up a bit. So anyway, we were walking one day with Dougal, little Dougal dog, in a field, and at the other side of the field I saw this beautiful big black and white dog with this lady. So I went bounding over and said hello to the dog, and basically he looked like a Springer Spaniel, a black and white Springer Spaniel, only he was big. It was kind of, if I'm standing, I think you've got a vague notion of how tall I am, maybe I'm 5'7". If I was standing with my hand just naturally at my side, it would rest on his back. He weighed 45 kilos, I'm sorry, I don't know what that is in pounds. but it's a bit more than double, I think, in pounds. Around £100 maybe, I don't know. When he was fully grown. So anyway, I got chatting with this lady and I asked about her dog. And it turned out that it was a large Munsterlander, which is a hunt point retrieve dog used for shooting. But they're not common in this country. They're a German breed, they come from Munsterland in Germany, where they're used for tracking wounded animals, largely. So anyway, I loved this lady's dog and we became friends. Her dog was called Cassius. And I came home and, you know, the ex was up for it as well. I did some research and found out about the breed and everything. And then I called the woman who ran the breed association, and she said that there were some puppies due and that weren't yet spoken for. Or no, sorry. She said that that there was a litter that would be coming up that wasn't, and some of the dogs weren't spoken for, but we'd have to wait 9 months. And they were in Lincolnshire, and at this time I was living in this area here, so that's quite a long way up. Lincolnshire is nearly up to just before Yorkshire. So anyway, that's how we got serious. So we went up when they were just born to pick him. We had a pick of a few. It was quite a big litter. I think there were 9 of them. Just one second, I need to see where I'm going next now. I'm going to that one, so I've got my needle out in the wrong direction. So yeah, that involved an overnight stay because it was a long drive. It was too far to go there and back in a day. I think it was about 7 hours or something like that. I'll do that laying on the thread trick again. So yeah, we went up when he was a couple of weeks old, I think, and picked him. And he was tiny. It's quite amazing how he went from tiny to, well, I've pulled right through. Never mind, let's lay it back on. You know, to the size he got to. And then we went back when he was 8 weeks old to get him. And then we stayed overnight the night before, and then we got him the following morning so that we could then drive back. And he was good as gold in the car. He came the whole way on my lap. He wasn't car sick. He wasn't... we couldn't let him go on the ground anywhere because he hadn't had his vaccinations and things. So I put a tray in the back with newspaper in, you know, and I put him on there a couple of times, and he did his wee-wees and his other things. And he was just a good dog from the beginning. And I trained him basic obedience, and I made sure he met children, you know, small children. He was great with cats. He was absolutely fine with chickens, although my ex used him mostly for shooting pheasant. He knew the difference between a pheasant in the field and a chicken in the yard. Chickens would walk under him and he would not bat an eyelid. Whoops, pulled my needle out of my thread. He was a very, very special boy, and a joy to train. He wasn't interested in food or toys or anything like that. He did what you asked once he understood it because he wanted to. And I taught him all the things that he needed to be a working gun dog. So I could send him left and right with a hand signal, with a whistle. And I loved all that. I must say I didn't like the shooting part very much, but I did like working with the dog. I didn't like the shooting part at all, actually, if I'm honest. There we go. But I loved working with the dog. And he, of course, was in his absolute element. I think I'll go this way. So I need a French knot here. And we did one little shoot with him, which was just what they call a rough shoot. I hope I'm not offending anybody talking about shooting. Like I said, it's not my favourite thing to do, but anyway, I'm certainly not, you know, speaking in favour of it or against it or anything. I'm just telling you about days out with my dog, basically. I know it can be quite a divisive subject. Yeah, and he was just such a good dog. He was big, you know, he was big, he was hairy, he was slobbery. I did joke that when he was drinking from his bowl, he made such a big puddle on the floor every time, and then all the water would be in his chops. Let me just have a little look, see. There's just one more, isn't there? Yeah. And so then it would trail all across the kitchen floor, you know, as he walked away. And I did joke about teaching him to wipe his face, and I did at one point actually hang a little towel on where his bowl was. There was a door that wasn't in use, so there was like a doorknob, and I did hang a little towel on the doorknob, and I did half-heartedly start encouraging him when he'd had a drink to wipe his face on the towel, but I didn't really persevere. But I could have done. I could have taught him to do that if I'd persisted. Yeah, he was a lovely boy, and I do miss him. With big dogs, they don't live as long as little dogs, and certainly are not pure breed dogs either. So he was only 11. But yeah. The thing is, he didn't realise he was 45 kilos. He thought he was a little lap dog. He wanted to sit on your lap. And he also wasn't supposed to go on the furniture. Not my rules. And I've got a photo somewhere. I'll try and find it. One of my, on my list of things to do on a rainy day when I've got nothing better to do, as if there's such a thing as those, is go through my photos, because all my photos are, you know, my physical paper photos I'm talking about, not the ones in my phone, are in 3 big boxes, and they're in all kinds of envelopes, and you know, they're not in any particular order, they need sorting out. But in there somewhere is a photo of Sirius, and he's sitting, his bottom is sitting on the edge of the sofa, and all his 4 legs are on the floor, and he just did that himself, and he's looking at the camera as if to say, what? My feet are on the floor. I'm not on the sofa. He was so funny. Oh dear. I must find that photo. And he was so good. We used to go camping a lot, and he was so good camping. He, you know, once the tent was up and the little area of grass that became ours for the duration had become defined, you know, you put your chairs out, and we had a fire pit the places we went usually, and all that kind of thing. Then he decided that was his territory. But before that, if people walked anywhere nearby, he would bark. But once all the territory was defined, he decided, right, that's my territory, that's fine, as long as nobody comes within that territory. And he would never hurt anyone, he would only bark, and the tail would be going at the same time. But because of the sheer size of him, you know, some people can be a bit intimidated, can't they? Having said that, there were a couple of occasions when he did protect me. There was one occasion when I was walking in the local town where I lived at the time, actually coming back from a walk with, I think I had Dougal as well. As Dougal got older, I used to do 2 walks a day, a big long walk only with Sirius, and then a shorter walk just with Dougal. Or sometimes I would carry Dougal. Although he was small, though, at one point it got a bit uncomfortable for him to be carried. You could tell he didn't really like it. But anyway, I'm not sure. I think I was probably just with Sirius, but it's not really important to the story. As I was coming back through the town, and it was quiet, there weren't many people about, it was only a little country town, and there was this man, and he was known locally, and he has, or had, I don't know if he's still there, mental health problems, and he also drank. And he was pretty much harmless, I think. I never heard any stories of anybody being hurt by him or anything like that, but this one particular day he came up and he'd obviously been drinking, and he started shouting in my face. I didn't even know what he was shouting. It was quite incoherent, and I sort of spoke to him in a conciliatory, calming way, I hoped, but then he started shouting in Sirius's face, and Sirius really growled, really, like, seriously growled, and I was concerned because he was protecting me, you know, and all his hackles went up and his lip curled, and so I put my hand on his collar and told him it was okay, but he wasn't having it. He obviously sensed a threat, and I was a little bit scared, I must say. You know, it was broad daylight, but like I say, there weren't many people around, and yeah, I was a little bit scared, or uncomfortable, shall we say. And I really, so I just, but I became concerned for the man, that if Sirius did, you know, follow up his warning, if it wasn't listened to with further action, shall we say. But I was also then thinking, and if he does that, he'll be in big trouble, and probably that'll be the end of him. So I shouted at the man to go away, which kind of, when I became more vocal, Sirius felt that he could stand down, I think, so he kind of retreated a little bit, and luckily the man did go away and it all turned out fine. But yeah, apart from that, he never bared his teeth or growled or anything. Well, there was one other occasion when I was sitting stitching. I'm going to, I think I'm going to go around the edges of my other stars. How are we doing for time? We've got a little bit of time. I think I might just go round. I could just running stitch outline them, but I think I might do the stitches out like little twinkles. You know what I mean? So I've done my constellations, like I said. So I'm just going to start here. I might stay about 1/8 of an inch away and just do stitches coming out like this. I'm not keeping them particularly even or the same length or anything. In fact, I'm varying the length. Yeah, I was sitting one day stitching actually on my sewing machine in a place where we lived. We hadn't lived there for very long. And the front door was open, and the front garden was fenced, and you know, because it was sunny, warm weather, and I heard Sirius barking, and I thought, oh well, there was a courtyard with a few houses around it, and sometimes he would bark just because one of the neighbours was coming or going or whatever. So I didn't go straight away, because he usually stopped after a few woofs, you know, if they'd moved along, as they should, as he thought they should. But he kept on, and it sounded really sort of quite serious barking. Serious barking. Yeah, that word joke was made many, many times throughout his life. My dad always used to say to him, in the voice and the accent of John McEnroe, you know, the tennis player and now commentator, etc., "You cannot be serious." That was my dad's little joke, which he said every time he saw him. But anyway, so he was really kicking off, so I went out, and it was my neighbour, and she was standing just outside the gate with a big box. And she said, "I'm not coming in there, but I've got something for you." And she actually was a dog trainer, or is a dog trainer. I expect she still is. But he apparently took it into his head. I don't know if it was because the door was open or because I was home alone or whatever, but when I opened the gate and, you know, let her in, he was all waggy tails and all over her, you know, he was absolutely fine. But he just, or whether it was maybe the box she was carrying, you know, it was just something about it that he wasn't happy with, and she wasn't coming in. Yeah, he was a love. He was a dog in a million. And I do love Stella. I do love Stella. She's laying here by me now, oblivious that I'm talking about Sirius. And he was so good with her. When she first came, she was a little annoying brown ball of fluff, disturbing his, by then, peaceful. I mean, Dougal was already old when Sirius came, so there wasn't any nonsense from Dougal. But when Stella came along, there was a lot of nonsense, and I trained Sirius to lay down to play with her because she was smaller than his head, if you can imagine. And I was just worried that he wouldn't, not that he would hurt her deliberately, but just, you know, if he put his paw on her from a great height, that would hurt when she was so tiny. So he would lay down and she would jump all over him and pull his ears, and he had big spaniel ears. Yeah, he was a good boy. And Fred was absolutely... I had a cat before Fred called Barney, who I already had when Sirius came. So he was always very good with cats as well. Yeah, I can hear my dad now saying, "You cannot be serious." Laughing hilariously every time as if he just made the joke up. So yeah, I'm just doing my stitches all different lengths, just as if the little star is twinkling. And I don't know that I'll do this round all of them. I'll see. In fact, yeah, I'll see. I'm just worried about my thread running out. I was going to say, in fact, I could switch to a different thread, and maybe I'll do this after I've finished this one. Don't think it'll matter. I must have other cream threads. And then I do have other plans next week for the rest of the background. I'm not sure if I'm going to do anything in the centres of the solid coloured ones particularly. I don't know yet. We've got one more week. So I think this week I will finish off doing these outline stitching around the edges, and if I do decide to do something in the centres of the others, I'll do all but one, and then next week I can show you whatever it is that I do. But I don't have any plans for that at the moment. But in principle, next week I will finish the fancy stitching, or at least tell you how I'm going to finish the fancy stitching on this section. Because the week after will be May and will be a new section. And I'll also obviously need to join this to the rest of it. Although it's not obligatory for you to join each section at the end of each month, you know. If you need to do more stitching on it and you want to keep it unjoined, you can wait until... oh, what's happening? Oh, Fred's got a little something. He's actually, I mentioned that some time ago. Did I finish what I was saying about the joining? I hope so. He hasn't done that for a long time, because I got him, on a recommendation of a friend who has cats, some treats that are supposed to prevent fur balls, special treats. And since he's been having those, he hasn't done that. But I have noticed that he's been molting a lot the last few days, more than normal, so I think he's changing his coat, so that's probably why he's been grooming himself. With the warmer weather coming. He's stopped now, he's fine. Stell's, it's alright, she gets really concerned. Goes and stands over him in a concerned way. I'm not sure he appreciates it, but you know. By the way, oh, here he comes, passing through. I don't know if you saw him, he went round the back of the camera. In the Friday video I was sorting through that basket, and a couple of you commented that it was Fred's basket that he'd been sleeping on, because I had mentioned a few times, and he did indeed like to sleep on that basket, in that basket with all the slow journaling fabrics and cloths and bits and bobs in it. But he has still got that. I'll show you quickly. Excuse my chair scraping. Seeing is believing. this is that basket. I've put this little bit of woolly blanket in, and you can see it's quite cat hairy. So that is now only his basket. It's maybe not as comfy. Maybe I need to put another little fluffy something in there. But he has still been sleeping in it, even though I took all his other stuff away. So yeah, what was I saying now? Red thread doesn't have hairballs usually anymore, fur balls, hairballs, whatever you call them. I'm just giving myself a recap. Yeah, I'm really enjoying the look of this silk on here. I don't dare use any more. I don't know. Tell me what to do. I feel like I'm being indecisive. I really would quite like to use it around all the rest of the stars at least, but I'm worried about running out on the other piece. And then you have to prioritise, don't you, if you don't think you can get any more, which is the most important. See, I like here as well how this little French, I'm showing you something, look up. This constellation of Columba, this star, is almost part of the twinkles of this star. So, and this is coming up. I mean, I didn't really plan that, but it just feels like they're connecting them together somehow. So yeah, anyway, finish your sparkles around here. Coming back round to where I started, and I think I've just about got enough thread if I don't make my stitches too big. What did occur to me is I've been going in and then coming up on the inside again. That makes sense, like that. What I could do to save thread is go in and then go across, and then go back in and go across. So maybe I will go and do that around the others with some of this same thread. And if I run out on my bigger piece, then I'll just have to change threads there, where I think it will be less noticeable than here. So that's a decision I've made. So finish that off. And there we have it for this week. So I'll go ahead and finish doing those sparkles around all the other stars, and then I'll be back next week to show you what I've done in the middles, and if it's something I think I need to show you, I'll leave one on stitch to do with you, and the same with the rest of the background. But that's it for this week. I hope you can you see Sirius? Quite pleased with that. And Cygnus, sorry, Columba and Cygnus. So I hope you have fun stitching constellations if that's the way you decide to go with it, and I look forward to you joining me. Oh sorry, and Friday will be Park Home Life with Lily, hopefully, and yeah, then Monday I'm still doing the Monday journaling, the self-care journaling, because that's something I really have committed to for the whole year. Thank you so much for your response to Friday's video. I think most of you, overwhelmingly most of you, were happy with more stitching and the slow journal being retired temporarily. What I will say as well is if you are making a slow journal, maybe Monday's video could suggest things that you could adapt for your slow journal if you're looking for ideas. I don't know. Anyway, thank you so much for being here and for watching, and I look forward to you joining me next time for more cloth tales. Bye bye.